we have quite a few white viewers that also tune into our channel. What do you say to people who may disagree with our focus on the intersection of race and class on the left, who tell us to focus only on class while we leave race in the rearview mirror?
I would say that that's not a serious position, that cannot be the foundation for building a radical movement in this country, that race has been at the center of the settler colonial project. See, part of what we have as a left in this country is that we cannot develop an effective left opposition because we still have to contest a misunderstanding of the nature of this system and the history of this country. That we argue that what we are up against broadly is the pan-European colonial capitalist white supremacist project that started in 1492 when Europeans spilled out of Europe and came into the Americas and began the process of conquest and supplemented the theft of indigenous land with the theft of human beings from Africa, that created the material foundation for what became, as Fanon said, Western Europe. We basically built Western Europe. And when we say Western Europe, we include in that the settler states of the United States, Canada, New Zealand, and all the rest of the settler projects. So, you know, at the center of that justification was white supremacist ideology. And so, you know, it was the dehumanization of indigenous people, of African people, was front and center. Brother Charles Mills, the famous black philosopher, talked about the fact that at the center of liberal philosophy is this notion of the social contract, this idea that all of us have certain kinds of objective rights stemming from nature, and that a legitimate government is one in which our rights are in fact protected. And so we give up our objective portions of our rights to this sovereign that is responsible for protecting all of our rights. Well, instead of a social contract between the government and us, what Charles Mills argues, and I agree, is what we have instead is a racial contract. That is a contract that says that the only group that has rights that have to be or should be respected and recognized are white folks, cross class. Okay. And when it comes to non-Europeans, you know, we have no rights, including rights that were reflected in the U.S. Constitution that were there to be respected. So, you know, Justice Taney in 1857 was actually correct when he said that black folks have no rights that white folks have to recognize and respect. So we say to our white friends that if you don't understand the connection between race and class, you have to understand that basically, you know, the capitalist system as it operates based on this racial component. That when we talk about racial capitalism, we're talking about, in fact, as Omali Yeshitela talks about, a colonial mode of production that continues. Okay, the super exploitation of black folks and other people of color still continues. When we had to try to build worker-led movements based on the working class, we had to deal with the contradictions of white workers who had privileged positions often, who fought to maintain those positions against us. We can't just dismiss that as a reality. And so if we want to build an effective class-based movement, we have to deal with these lingering issues of white supremacy, this identification with the Anglo-Saxon West, if you will, the fact that these ideals articulated by white supremacists like Zelensky, who talks about the collective left, the collective of Europe, and talks about Europeanness, okay, and people who instinctively believe that the apex of human development is reflected by European societies. If you believe in those kinds of notions, you are objectively a white supremacist. That's why we say that white supremacy cannot be reduced to race. Barack Obama was a white supremacist and is a white supremacist.
Right.
The complexities of race. It's a tough conversation, but we got to deal with it. Okay. And so, if when our friends tell us, don't be concerned with this imposition that we have to deal with now, or this racial category, that is not important for us to be not only Black workers, but African people too, and that we have a connection to other African workers, that we are concerned with anti-colonialism and anti-imperialism, and that we are concerned with other colonized peoples. Then we have to help our friends understand that we're not going to abandon that perspective. And basically, if you don't understand where we're coming from, then we're never going to be successful in this country building a radical movement.
Strategically, how do we as Black people move forward with white allies who have this belief? Like how do you see that sort of teaming up, manifesting? What does it look like to you?
Well, we make the argument that while we struggle with our white comrades, we believe that it's important for African people, the African working class, to be independently organized. See, part of the strategic confusion among with some of our friends is that the only kind of formation that they will respect is a multiracial, multinational formation. We have no problem with those for individuals who want to be part of that, and we will work with folks as long as we're moving in the same common direction. But we also assert our right to have our own independent organizations. Why? Because in the confusion around this issue of race, we have to be in a position to define and to assert and protect our objective interests. And so we believe and put at the center of our approach to politics the principle of self-determination. Okay, and so while we debate and struggle with our friends, we are not going to surrender our power. We also make the assertion that if you look at the history of radicalism in the U.S., the times where there's been the most significant advancement of radicalism in the U.S. is when you've had African people at the forefront of that. Okay, and that is still, I think, the case or the situation we're facing today. That basically, until you have some of the most, until you have the organization and the leadership coming from, we say, the colonized peoples of this country, we're not going to make real advances. I think that unfortunately, some elements of the white working class movement have been so corrupted that it's very difficult for them to organize themselves. In fact, one of the issues we have is that, and we've been having this argument or this conversation for decades. We say if we see so much backwardness coming from the white community and so much from the white working class friends, as white workers, as white activists, as white radicals, why aren't you not doing more in organizing the white working class? Now, you could be all up in our communities helping to organize us, supposedly, but where is the work taking place among your folks? Now, one reason why they don't do that, I'm gonna tell you, because they quite objectively, I think most of them are scared of them because they so fucking dangerous. But we have white workers who, in fact, are trying to organize white workers. Okay, we need more of them. We don't need folks in our communities helping to organize us. We can organize ourselves. We don't need you all undermining our ideological orientations, and based on your fantasies about how revolution should unfold. Okay, what we need for you to do is to help build a movement about organizing where you should have some expertise. Okay, so it's a constant struggle we have to engage in because this deep confusion around these notions of race and where and the role of our white working class friends and allies.
And I think, let me say one more thing here, because what rings to me when you were speaking is, what is it, the young patriots, young lords, and the Black Panthers, and because I just recently did an I Am the Revolution episode on it, and it was never were in the footage that I found of the actual meeting. I actually found a meeting where Bobby Lee was in, and it was like a couple of hours long. It was never like, hey, everybody's together. It was like, you go organize your community, I organize my community, and then we come together with common goals that we execute. So I think it's kind of been, I don't know if the right word is co-opted, because it kind of implies malice, but it has been changed. That understanding of coalition has kind of morphed into something other, because we have to understand each individual community does have different goals. We have different things that we have to fight for. There's different ways that we're being oppressed, makes it better to sort of organize your community, then come together. You get what I'm saying? So anybody can speak to that. That's just what I wanted. That's what I was feeling, what I got from what you said, Ajamu. So anybody who wanted to jump in can.
Let me jump in real quick. Just piggyback real quickly off of that. The strategies are going to be different. Some of the underlying structures, of course, are the same. We're all being oppressed by capitalism. Okay, we bring in the colonial capitalist connection, but in essence, it is the capitalist system that we have to do away with. So that becomes the basis of a potential unity. But how we get there in terms of the strategies of how we organize in our communities, how we organize the various sectors of the working class, that's where we have conversations. The issue we have, though, is when some people will attempt to impose on us their strategies of organizing, as though they know better than we do our objective conditions. You know, we understand the consciousness of Black workers. We understand the conditions in our communities. Therefore, we are the ones most, in position to know how to organize our people. Okay, you should have the same kinds of understandings in your communities, and that doesn't mean we have these separate silo kinds of struggles. You know, it just means that we have to have strategies that correspond to the objective conditions in this context of the territory we call the United States of America.
I think the way that you put this, Jamu, is beautiful, and I think a lot of well-meaning white allies will learn a lot from that answer.